Thanks for coming, Jamie.
Thanks for having me.
So you were going to bring our notable incident.
Ah, yes.
Good.
Excellent. There's
One
a copy
for me.
For you.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'd like us to do is, first of all, I'll get you to read this. Then we'll discuss it and we'll use the triangle, okay? And you'll be able to hold this triangle when you're doing that, and I'll work you around it. It doesn't matter if you don't remember what the cells are, because I'll explain them as we go.
Thank you.
And then, when we've done that, I'll then move on and ask some more reflective questions to thicken up the story that we've been telling. So we'll try and go through the triangle, fairly quickly. So let's just look at where we'll be when we're doing the supervision. So you remember this of the supervisory spaces.
Yes.
So here's the office where I tell you what to do
Yep.
when you're doing something that's dangerous.
Right.
We won't be going there.
Right.
If we do go there, we'll stop. Okay. This is the exam room where I assess you to report on you. I'm not doing that. No exam.
No.
This is the lecture theatre where I teach you. Now, if I get into teaching, because this is not teaching, this is reflection. If I get into teaching, here's a couple of little yellow cards. And if I start to give you advice and tell you what to do, just quietly hand one of them to me.
Right.
So you can put them down beside you for now.
Thank you.
But they're there. And so you don't have to say shush, you just quietly hand me a card. I can assure you if you hand me one, I won't need a second. I'll pull my head in. So really, I'm planning not to be on the top of these spaces.
Right.
This is the sitting room where we debrief your stuff, how the work's affecting you and what's happening in your personal life that's affecting the work. We can go to the sitting room here if you want to, but you might choose not to, given that it's being filmed and you might want privacy. But if you want to go there, that's where I'm not a counsellor there, I just sit with you where you talk about what happened. The studio's where we do active planning, but the room I'm most interested in is the observatory.
Right.
In the observatory, we're not doing problem solving, we're just reflecting, okay? So after you do this, we'll do the triangle in the observatory, and then we'll do some reflective questions in the observatory. And if I think we've come up here, or you think we've come up here, then you can just grab this and say, I feel like you're assessing me now, or, or you can give me a ticket there. And these we move fluidly as you need to go.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
It does, yes. Thank you.
Good. The other thing is, I'll take notes. The notes that help me in the session, but they're for you at the end, okay?
Oh, great, thank you.
So, but as we go, and what I write down on the notes is not any interpretation or commentary, it's your words.
Right.
Because we keep coming back to what were your words. So, we got all housekeeping done?
I think so.
Good. Okay, so read me your incident.
So the background.
Yes.
I was asked to see an unmarried 19-year-old woman from a devout Christian Catholic background who had just found out she was pregnant.
Yep.
She was in her first year of scholarship at a Catholic university.
Yep.
And I was on the staff there.
Yep.
She was in the pregnancy was causing her a great amount of distress, both to her, her boyfriend, and to their families.
Yep.
So I went in early one morning when I knew she'd be eating breakfast near my office, and I left my door open to see if she'd come in, and she did.
Yep.
So the incident.
Yep.
I'll read the incident. As she walks into my room, I notice she looks tired, pale, and drawn. She has very flat affect, and when she smiles, it's as if she's smiling from a long way away.
Yep.
I talk to her about her classes and then ask if she is all right. She begins to tear up and she says she's pregnant and her father is threatening to throw her out of her home. I say that I'm sorry to hear this, but I also affirm that it's a beautiful thing that there's life growing within her. And in fact, I congratulated her.
Congratulated her, yep.
Yeah, that's wonderful, I said. I say that I will support her to explore all options and will support whatever she decides to do in that.
Yep.
Even if she desires to abort the child,
Yep.
although I will not be able to assist with that myself. She will have to, I'll refer on.
Yep.
So I ask her what she's thinking after all of that, and she says she was shocked to find that she was pregnant, and she feels numb, and she's distressed by her parents' reaction, although she did expect it.
Mm-hmm.
Her boyfriend now wants to marry her, but she doesn't want to marry only for this reason.
Yep.
So she's in the process, she says, of sorting things out. I asked if it would be helpful to talk to me
Yep.
about all the stuff that's going on to me, even though I've sort of made her aware of my values
Yep.
and the church's moral position,
Yep.
which I'm required to do.
Yep.
She says yes.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks that would be helpful. So what I did then was I began to review what supports her, what support she has in place to help her sort things out.
Yep.
And I did that to connect her more thickly with safe people.
Yep.
I also offered to visit and speak with her parents and her boyfriend, or to facilitate a meeting with all the parties if that would help ease the pressure.
Yep.
And she was very generous when she received my offer, and she had a bit of a relieved smile. I think she was just so grateful.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her about that, and she says she feels less alone in it all now.
Good.
Is that okay?
Significance. Why is, of all the work you've done, why is this the one you've chosen to talk about today?
The reason I wanted to bring it to you, Daph, was I wanted some supervision around... well, I'll read it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I always find situations like this very challenging in terms of not imposing my own values,
Mm-hmm.
whilst at the same time making them visible and clear
Yep.
to my client.
Yep.
In this case, this young woman. And I think this is even more important because of the power differential between us.
Yep.
A male...
Stay with the text.
I believe in transparency. It's one of my core values
Yep.
when I'm working as a therapist.
Yep.
And as a psychologist. I also have a mandate in the university as a priest, as a Catholic priest.
Mm-hmm.
I have a mandate to represent the social teaching of the Catholic Church and the moral position of the Church,
Mm-hmm.
whatever of my own position.
Yep.
So that's tricky, how to manage that without alienating or making it worse for the client.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to do this in such a way as to not cause distress,
Mm-hmm.
but to actually provide resources for her to think things through.
Yep.
And I'm left wondering how I managed it.
Okay. Good. So there
Can I
was a
put
bit
this
there where you wanted to expand it a bit, where you wanted to say that the issue was about power and gender. You just want to say something about that for a moment?
I think that as a counsellor, as a psychologist, when I'm working, it's really important to have an eye to any power differentials,
Mm-hmm.
which might mean that the client or patient or whoever I'm working with can't speak about, feels unable
Mm-hmm.
to speak about the important things to me.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, it's a woman
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a male.
Yep.
So I represent kind of a patriarchal authority.
Yep.
In this case, I'm much older and she's much younger,
Yep.
which might silence her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't say this to an older man. And then, of course, within the Christian Catholic culture, I am a priest.
And she knows that you're a
and
priest.
she knows that I'm a priest, and it was probably part of the reason why she came in the door was knowing that I
Right.
would be someone she could turn to, and I wanted to make sure I was that someone, and I wanted to do that by making clear my own positions, the church's positions, but also supporting her to come to know what decisions she wanted to make.
Okay. So when you say I want to make sure I was that someone is the someone the priest, or the someone the person that helps her not be alone?
That's someone.
That's someone where she feels not alone.
Not alone, supported,
Supported,
that I'm someone she can talk to.
can talk to. Okay, so let's use the triangle.
Okay.
What we're going to do is go briefly around it, and there might be places where you start to say a lot more, and I'll actually ask you to pull back so as we just get round it, and then we'll do a lot more reflection on it later.
No, me, I've always got a lot to say.
Yeah, well, then I might be pulling back often then, mightn't I? So here, assessment conceptualisation. So we have to think here about which assessment we're looking at. And I think we'll focus first about talking about her needs. Let's give her a name. What's her name?
Let's call her Maria.
Maria. Okay.
That's not her real name.
Good. Okay, so let's focus on Maria as the client. What's your assessment about what's happening for her and what her needs are?
I think she's facing a major life crisis that is affecting not only her psychological well-being, but actually her physical well-being. Excuse me. In terms of her housing, her finances, the university career that she's managed to get into, which her family can't afford. She's a scholarship student. So, you know, she's had these tremendous opportunities.
This could change your life doing this degree. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm interested. You said psych and physical. What about, I don't know what word you used for it, spiritual, religious?
Yes. Well, see, I see them as interplaying. The spiritual is very much flowing through all of those things. We're spiritual beings, and so that's my belief anyway.
Yeah, so the spiritual interplays. So for me, I put it, is it okay for me to say psychological, physical and spiritual?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep, please
okay.
do.
Thank you. So that's what you see. What was your plan in terms of how you thought you'd work with her?
I was simply going to explore with her or support her to understand what she thought about it all.
Right. So helping her to do her own journey through this. Meaning making.
When she said she was sorting it out to me, those were her words that I wrote, what I understood she was saying was that she's finding meanings to all these things. What's the meaning of being pregnant? What's the meaning of being pregnant, unmarried, and my age when I've got this degree, I'm a university degree, and my hope is in this. And she's the first person in her family to be educated at tertiary level.
So if she goes with the baby, she's actually blocking those options?
Not necessarily, because it might be that we can put in place childcare support. The institution I was working at the time would be able to do that.
Okay.
I would make sure of it.
Okay, so it's not the case that it's either baby or degree?
No.
Good.
But I think that's how it was being presented to her.
By her parents?
Yeah.
And she mightn't have known that there were options?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So your plan was to do that. Now, contracting, if Maria was here now and I said to her, what did she call you? What name did she use?
Father Jamie.
Father Jamie. So if I said to Maria, what have you and Father Jamie agreed about what he's going to do for you, what would she say?
She would say he's going to support me by counselling, with counselling.
So she knew you're a trained...
Yes.
What does she call you? A counsellor, a psychologist?
She would have called me a counsellor.
Yeah, okay. So she would have said he's going to help me with counselling and...
He's going to come and visit my mum and dad.
Visit mum and dad, yeah. For what purpose? To settle them down? To
have a word, see how things are going, what they're worried about, how they feel about things.
Yeah. And what else would she say you were going to do?
Talk with her boyfriend. With her. And his family as well.
And his family. Okay. So this next cell is about implementing this plan. And if we were looking, if you were still working with Maria, we'd go there and look at how it's going and what needs to do to tweak it. But given this is the past, unless there's anything in the follow-up plan that you think's relevant to your basic question that we're asking about, let me get the wording.
Wonder how I went.
I wonder how I went, you know, how did I deal with the power issues?
Yeah.
Unless there's something about the later implementation you need to tell me now, we might skip that for now. Okay? If something comes up, it's okay to go back there. So this one's administration reports. Do you have to write on anything anywhere that she's pregnant?
No, I do not.
Do you have to tell anyone, unless she asks you to get her help with childcare for the child, is there anyone you have to report to, or any files you have to keep, or anything you have to do?
No, there's no one I
in
have
relation?
to, but I did seek her permission to speak to the academic dean to get things rolling there,
Okay.
which she gave. Providing she is not going to self-harm or other harm, the rules of confidentiality are intact.
Okay. But you have got her permission, which also helped her to realise this is confidential. He doesn't go talking without me.
That's correct.
Good. Okay. So that's about Maria. Now let's go with you. Skills and knowledge. Have you had the opportunity to develop the skills and knowledge you need as a counsellor to do counselling with an 18-year-old, whatever she is, unmarried Catholic girl?
I do.
You do. You've got that training. Okay.
You're one of the ones who gave it to me.
Good, I'm glad. So it generalises, because we didn't do that topic specifically, but the general skills. So what you're saying there is your general skills as a narrative therapist you think fit fine for this work.
Yeah. Narrative and other, I used other tools.
Narrative and other, okay. What about skills and knowledge to work with this problem as a priest?
Yeah, no, I do have them because I was able to ask the question. The incident is, the significance of the incident to me denotes that I do have those skills.
Yes,
It
because if you didn't ask the question, then it would show you didn't understand that there was a challenge here, significance of incident. Okay,
Yeah.
Good. So generally the skills needed to do this job you've got. We don't need to look at stuff there. Okay, now here's a much more challenging one, professional conduct. The things we're interested in here is what's your duty of care and who's your duty of care to? And it seems to me we need to do this question with two different roles. First of all, let's do duty of care as her pastoral counsellor. What's your duty of care there, and what are the professional challenges of working with her as a counsellor, leaving aside that you're a priest?
I'm not really understanding. I think my duty of care there is to support her well-being.
Her well-being.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you why some people would say my duty of care is to the unborn child.
Ah.
Some people would say my duty of care is to the family who are struggling with a daughter who's in this situation. So lots of people would have different notions about, or to her boyfriend who wants to marry her and she's saying no.
No, I would see my duty of care to her unborn child as being through her, her well-being.
Through her.
So the more I'm able to support her, the more I'm able to support that life.
Okay. So supporting her is your primary duty of care.
Mm-hmm.
And if she did decide to have a termination, what would you then feel about duty of care? This is as a counsellor. What would you then feel about duty of care to the child?
Yeah, I'd find that very challenging.
Okay, question mark. Now let's do duty of care as a priest.
Well, again, it's to her well-being.
Yes?
Yeah. For the sake of the unborn child.
Her well-being,
Well,
for the sake
Well,
of...
for her sake as well, but...
Can you help me to understand what you mean there?
No, I'm struggling myself.
This is part of where the conflict is, isn't it?
Yeah, this is very good. This is pointing it out to me really clearly. I don't think I ultimately believe that I can coerce her to have this child or misuse my skills to set it up so that, and I could have done that. I am skilled enough to have set that up.
To do the guilt trip.
Well, it would have been far more subtle. I can imagine that if I had done that, I don't want to imagine that because it's ethically repugnant.
Yeah.
But I could have...
Ethically repugnant
I could have psychologically hemmed her in so that she really
Repugnant
had only...
to hem her in.
So she would have felt she had only one choice. I could never do that.
To only one choice.
That takes away her freedom.
Okay, tell me more about freedom.
Well, Catholics believe in something called the primacy of conscience, of a person's individual conscience is their unique, unrepeatable relationship with God, with the divine transcendence. So therefore, that if a person comes to act counter to church teaching, but believes in their heart of hearts, with all the information gathered, with knowledge, full knowledge of the church's position, that is best for them and is most life-giving, then no one can stand in judgment of that.
Okay, no one can stand in judgment. So there is a position that allows you as a priest to support her
Yes.
to go for the termination. That's news to me. I would
No,
have thought your
I
role
wouldn't have
was...
said that supports her to go for the termination.
Okay.
I can't say it like that, no. But there is a position that allows me to support her conscience in its development.
Support her conscience, and no one can stand in judgment, were your words. Yes.
Yes, although I would have to say that it is contrary to my own values and to the position of the church.
Oh, that's interesting. So you've actually got three roles here. There's three of you. There's
it's getting more complicated.
there's the counsellor.
Yes.
There's the priest.
Yes.
And there's you.
Yes.
Because your own values come into this as well. As
Yeah.
it happens, your values fit with the church's values.
Yes.
But they don't necessarily always do that, or do they?
They don't necessarily always do that.
Okay, so in this situation they do fit,
Yes.
but they could have been another issue.
Yes.
So you, Jamie, wouldn't personally support a termination.
No, I can't.
And you, the priest, can't support a termination. And then the third role is a counsellor, and that's to totally just help her to decide what's best for her.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes?
I don't know. I think
There was a pause there.
well, because I thought that was the whole thing, was to help her decide what's best
yeah,
for her.
yeah. I mean, I know in pregnancy counselling, the training is to be totally impartial about which way they go.
Yes.
So your counsellor role, you would be impartial.
Yep.
But you do have partialities as a priest and as a self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my way of kind of not neutralising them, but at least making them visible for her so she would know, was to make them clear, to speak of them.
Make clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So making them clear, transparency was the word you used.
Yes.
Was one of the ways you were addressing this ethical challenge.
And also our power imbalance.
And power imbalance. That's interesting. So you think naming it helps the power imbalance?
She gets to see if I've got any hidden agenda.
That's not a hidden agenda. You're a priest. She knows your position.
Not necessarily.
No?
No, I think that's the danger of taken for granted is that
Taken for granted. Okay.
is that they are just that, dangerously taken for granted.
Okay, I would have taken for granted that as a priest you would be against the termination. But that's not necessarily the case.
I think some priests, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't speculate.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, okay, I am trying to challenge you on something here, and I'm trying to find a wording that respects what you're trying to say but still invites you to go a bit further. That's the problem I'm having. In fact, we're going to jump a section here, and we're going to go down to this cell here, supervisory relationship, which we
Right.
would have got to at the end.
Right.
And I would have said there, how is this going for you, and are you feeling total freedom to speak, given that I'm non-religious, given that I've actually assisted 4 different women to have a termination, and in fact I can see each of their faces now as I say that. So my stuff in this is going to matter too, for us to talk about it. Am I asking you the questions in a way that's giving you a place to have your position, or am I subtly, what was your word down here? Hem you in. Am I subtly hemming you in?
You're after something, and I don't know what it is. You see there's a challenge point for me, and I'm curious about what it is.
Okay. But it feels like it's a challenge point, not that I'm trying. It's okay for you to do this. Yeah, good, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, here's what I'm trying to challenge. We've emphasised transparency, and you've said that's your way to address the power imbalance.
One of the ways, yeah.
One of the ways. And I have this niggly feeling. Let's look at the words you use. When she said to you she was pregnant, you said, "I'm sorry to hear this, but I want to affirm that it's beautiful that there's a life growing in you." And then went, as an aside, when you read that, you said, "I actually congratulated her on it and told her it was wonderful." I'm trying to ask, is there power in you doing that? I know you're saying it to be transparent, but it frames...
It does.
If I'm trying to think about terminating this child and this person saying, "This is wonderful, congratulations." So that's what I'm trying to put my finger on.
Yeah, and I think that's right.
Your attempt to...
I can't get around
diminish the power, increase the power, or at least kept it.
I don't follow that so much, but I can see that my response to her... And in fact, I didn't say, "I'm sorry to hear this." I said, "I can see that that's causing you distress. And I'm sorry to see that and hear that you're distressed."
Okay, sorry to hear the distress, yes.
But I want to, I think it's a wonderful thing that's happened.
It's a wonderful thing.
Life just keeps happening.
Life. Yeah. So we do understand, and you raised it right from the beginning, the power issue, and this cell really highlights the challenges of that.
It's very difficult. And I said to her, I think I said to her, if I haven't, I should have, but that's what I think.
But that's what I think.
I quarantined my own position away. That's what I think, and that's neither here nor there now, or that's not what we're here to talk about.
That's neither here nor there. Now, do you think you did say that? Or did you think that?
Well, I certainly thought it. I would have definitely have said something along the lines of, "This is your space and your time."
Your space.
But my own values position is this.
Yeah.
That this is a wonderful thing, and
yeah.
Admittedly, it's going to be a very challenging time for it to happen, in a very challenging way.
Mm-hmm. If Maria was here now and I asked her, would she say that she heard that distinction?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. Okay, this is professional identity, and this is the one that we're talking about who are you being when you do this work? Are you being a counsellor, a priest, or a self? Who are you?
Do I have to be one or the other?
Not necessarily. Clarifying all the different roles and how you're working between them might be the answer to the question.
I think primarily I'm a self who does these other things.
Self who does these things. And you do them because they resonate with self.
Yeah. They express something deep of who I am.
Okay. Deep of who I am. Okay, if Maria was here and I asked her, who were you being? Who would she say?
Priest.
Priest?
My priest. She would say my priest.
My priest.
Culturally, she is trained to locate me as someone for her.
Someone for her, yeah.
And part of that is resourcing her with what the church thinks, with my own position, and then helping her sort through where she's at with all of those things.
Self, okay.
And then sort through where she's at with it.
Yeah, okay. Trying to think if there's other stuff about professional identity I want to ask before we move on, because I'm wanting to finish this off and move on to other questions. I'll put it to you. Can you think of anything else about your professional identity and your sense of genuineness in the role that you want to talk about here?
I like those questions you've asked around if Maria here, what would she would say, because it allows me to bring her gaze more into the work we did together.
Yeah.
And I feel confident that she would say that she found me a loving and caring person, and that she was able to confide in me, and that I was a very good resource for her help working these things out.
And what about judgment? Would she say she felt judged?
No, she would not say that.
Not judged. Which of those is most important to you? Loving and caring, confide, good resource, not being judged?
Oh, I suppose it'd be loving and caring. But they're, they are general values that are then embodied in different ways. So in my loving and caring, I say, this is what I think.
Yeah.
But I offer that to you only as a position for you to work out what you think.
Yeah.
This is why I think it, or this is what I believe, and this is why I believe it, or this is what I feel, and this is why I feel it.
Right, so it expands on that for her.
Yeah. But all the time I'm using those kind of narrative bendy back questions.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you though?
Yeah.
Where do you locate that? How does that fit for you? What's helpful for you in what I've said? What's unhelpful for you and why?
So the bendy back questions...
I don't know what they're called, but I just remember someone calling them bendy back questions.
What they're doing then is moving you from being in a pulpit telling her to engaging with her about the meaning for her.
Yeah.
So those questions actually keep the counsellor and self role more active.
Yes.
Because I can imagine some priests could do these things in a more powerful one up, one down way.
And in our second interview, I did ask about, of the things that we talked about, how was I going? Was there anything that she felt that she might not be able to say to me because I am an older man, and because I am a Catholic priest, and because I am a psychologist and a professional and all that kind of stuff? And we explored that. She didn't think there was.
Good. So you did raise it later. Great. I'm going to move along because I'm under time pressure.
Good.
The self-cell, I'll just ask very quickly, and we won't go into it here. This would be what this stuff triggers for you in your life about potential of having your own children, family children, all sorts of the personal meanings. We're not going to any of those now. I'm just letting you know where we might have gone in a longer time if we're alone.
What a shame, because there's many things we could have talked about there.
Yeah, I know. But we're not doing them now. But they are affecting. That's where the self really does come into all of this. Professional relationships. Were you customers for each other?
I think so, yeah.
Sounds like it to me. Systems relationships. You've already named this a bit. This is all the other people in the system. And one of the people I noticed in the system that we haven't talked about was I was asked. Mm-hmm. Now, somebody knew about this pregnancy and asked you to see her. Did they ask you to see her as a counsellor or as a priest?
They asked me to see her as a priest who can be a counsellor.
Right. And is that person's role relevant in what we're doing here? Or
that person is in the senior role in the academics.
Yeah.
And there was problems with the designated counsellor.
Right.
The young people were not finding the designated counsellor was able to enter into their experience. And over the time that I was working in the organisation, I became the de facto psychologist.
Right. Okay, so that's one person in the system. This is also all the other people. You've named the boyfriend and the meanings for him, if she might abort his child, which is a huge one.
Yep.
The meanings for the families. If you said they're very devout Catholics, what's the meaning for the parents of having a daughter who's pregnant?
Oh, shame.
Shame?
Failure. Embarrassment.
Failure, embarrassment. Okay, and if she had a termination, they could keep it a secret and prevent those?
Yes.
And what about for his family? What's the meanings for his family?
They were very negative meanings around the daughter, around the young woman.
So it's her fault that she seduced their poor innocent son sort of stuff?
At times that interview became a little bit close to that, yes.
Negative to her, okay.
But they were angry and upset.
Yeah, well, they would have
Shame,
some of the
embarrassed.
same shame, yeah, and they're looking for where to put it. Whereas her family put onto him or to her?
Her.
Her. So it was her.
Yeah. So what I was
The
doing...
responsibility of all of this goes on to her. The feminist in me is getting active
Yeah, I know.
here.
So what I was doing
Yeah.
was bringing to bear all of the systemic power I have
Yes.
to mitigate against that.
Mitigate.
To say that's not going to happen on my watch.
Great.
So in other words, Father's here.
Yep. Father Jamie says that's not on.
That's not on.
And they have to listen to you.
I didn't say it quite as unsubtly as that.
No, but
I used questions.
they got the message.
Yeah.
So in this place, you used your power.
Yeah.
Okay. This one's the systems patterns. This is things like what roles you take with each other, like if you became the rescuer and she became the victim. And I notice in all you've talked about how carefully you've been to keep her as her own agent.
Yes.
And not make
It's
her a
crucial
sort of
in
a
this work.
supplicant to the priest in any way.
No.
You've really managed to do that well. The other one is how things that happen between us can be a parallel to what was happening with you and her. And one way I try and get to that is think, what am I feeling? I'm actually feeling the transparency. So the parallel is to feel safe with you, that you're being real with your many roles. So yes, there's always some parallel process. The question is it helpful or unhelpful? And in this case, I'm finding it helpful. So let's put this aside because we've sorted out that you and I are going. Although we could say, is there anything I can do here to make this more comfortable for you now?
I suppose I don't know about that, but something has come to me
Yep.
as we've been talking, and it's around a very close family member having an abortion, and that's there as well.
Yep. So that would bring us back to here.
Yeah, that's just something
Yeah.
I note in passing that I
Yeah.
hadn't thought of at the time, which may have been unconsciously informing me or pre-consciously informing me.
Well, we do carry those things, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's put this one aside for now. And
Good.
what I'm going to be doing now is asking you some questions. The tool I'm using is the Please platform, but you don't need to know about that. I'll ask the questions, you just have to answer them, okay?
Right.
Okay. So, given all of this, and remember that your question at the beginning was, I wonder how I managed it, and we've just had a brief review over the lot. What are you most pleased about what you did?
Well, you've validated through your own sense of where things are going in terms of parallel process that there was the transparency that I was hoping for.
Yep.
And that has affirmed my sense of that, and I'm most pleased about that.
Yep. Good.
And I felt if you have this, if a church has a social teaching around the value of life, it then has to provide, it has a responsibility to provide the resources for that to happen.
Has to provide the resources.
Yeah, I believe that, and I'm part of that provision. And I felt that I'm most pleased that I was able to do that.
Yeah.
And we were able to put in place what was necessary for this young woman to bring this life into the world.
Right.
That she did.
I was not going to ask that bit.
Sorry.
I was going to stay away from the ending.
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Because what you're saying there is you're pleased that it all worked because she kept the child.
No, I'm saying that that's a happy byproduct. But what I am pleased about was that she experienced herself as resourced enough to be able to come to a decision that she herself was happy with and to be able to do so independently.
Enough that she was happy with.
Yeah, like she was the agent, not me.
Okay, now she was happy with. There's the key bit for me, because we did talk about the ways you could do subtle power. So give me 3 things you did that helped her to make her own decision and not be subtly pressured to make the decision you hoped she'd make.
I constantly asked positioning questions of her. How does that strike you? What do you think about that? What's unhelpful? What's helpful about that? Why? The why question, trying to nail it cognitively for her. So I was very attentive to what narrative therapists call scaffolding, constantly scaffolding for her cognitively around her own thoughts and beliefs.
Yep. And then when she came up with something, you must have been responsive to that and not subtly saying yes, but.
I never said yes, but.
Or anything like it.
No, because the minute you find yourself in a counselling situation saying yes, but, you're no longer counselling.
Yeah.
You're
what
doing
are you doing
something
then?
else. You're perpetrating your agenda.
Yeah.
That you consider to be best.
Yeah.
For the person you're working with.
That
and
must
it
have
doesn't
been
work.
very hard for you.
It works for a short time sometimes. It leads to a cult.
Yeah.
It's just no good.
Must have been very hard to do. Try and dig deep and tell me, how did you manage not to let your agenda shape how you responded?
I am absolutely committed to this young woman and to her project as she determines it. That's one. And the second thing would be faith in her ability to work out what was best for her.
Yeah, that's an important one, because if you think the person's incapable, it's hard to honour their freedom to make a choice. So you really had faith in her ability to work out what's best for her.
And that's I'm a servant of her freedom.
Servant of her freedom. Who's speaking there?
I don't know.
Is that the priest, the counsellor?
No, it'd be me.
Me. Because there's some of the words like what you were using before about the church's teaching. So what you're saying to me then is you can put that sort of stuff into practice because it's deeply what you believe.
Yes.
So what we're coming down to is, although on the surface it looked like the dual roles you had were priest and counsellor,
Yes.
the thing that's come through this that holds it together is your personal values, your personal principle,
Yes.
your personal view that you're a servant of her freedom.
Yeah. But also, what I mean by that is her humanity, our humanity. So much dogma or so much in our world, you know, the right and wrong of morality and ethics, it fails the human test. It doesn't make people more human.
Fails the human test.
Like, what supports our humanity? I mean, we could have a whole discussion thickening this idea of humanity, I know, and it's a very broad thing, but this common thing that we share across all religious divides, across all genders, across all ages, what blah, 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 sexual preferences, everything, this humanity that is our gift.
Humanity. And you said her humanity.
Yes.
Okay. Now I've got a wee problem here. I'd like us to wind up soon.
Good. Well, let's
But I have a whole pile more questions I want to ask, so I'm going to only ask 2 more questions.
Oh, you're
right?
so disciplined. I could never do that.
Discipline? Look who's disciplined. This is an exercise
I'd go
in
for at least
discipline.
5 questions.
Yeah, I know, but then it'd run too long. I'll probably end up with 5 anyway. So I asked what were you most pleased about, and we've got a very strong, clear answer about that, and it comes down for me for 2 things. I'm a servant of her freedom. I'm a servant of her freedom. And it's all about her humanity. I think that's very powerful. So let me ask the other questions that I'd ask if we had another 20 minutes. What would you like to have done differently with Maria?
I felt I was clunky at the start. It wasn't as natural as what it became. as we started working together.
Yeah. How would you like to have done it differently?
I think I probably would have spent more time thinking through my value position, the church's position, and how I was going to talk about that in such a way that was not going to impede her freedom, or that would be a resource, not a judgment.
Okay.
So I was clunky with that. I was kind of wanting to say it, but not quite sure, and then saying it and then thinking, oh.
So the priest and Jamie said, this is wonderful, this is life. And the counsellor wanted to say,
hang on, boys.
what's happening?
Let's do this really carefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would have liked to draw on some of your counselling
Yes.
skills there.
That's probably true, yeah.
Which is a bit of a challenge, because part of the gift you have when you work with people is being genuinely you. And now we're saying you could do the job better if you weren't genuinely you, if you were.
Oh no, I think it would still have been me. It would have been me a little bit clearer about me.
Clearer about me. So let's try it. Okay, so I'm pregnant and my dad's threatening to throw me out.
Well, it's terrible news that he's threatening to throw you out.
Great, I feel heard. Yeah, that's great. How did that feel like to you to do it that way?
It felt natural. It felt like I was moving to address the cause of the pain and suffering. The cause of the pain and suffering is not the pregnancy. The cause of the pain and suffering is the parents' decisions in relation to it.
Right. And in fact, it's good we've picked that up, because for a lot of this discussion it was should she or shouldn't she have a termination.
Yeah.
And so this is the cause of the pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why I wanted to roll out the power of my role to neutralise those things, so that the choice could be made in freedom.
I mean, I like the way you used your power. You're always very sensitive to power, and I like the way you did use it with the parents to help them to cope with painful stuff. And that's one of the gifts of being a priest. You couldn't have done that just as a counsellor. No. And if I'd come and done it, they would have just, yeah. So you are recognising both the potential and the limitation. Yeah. Okay, one last question and we're done. What are you going to take from this for your future work?
I feel really connected now to the idea of being a servant and of humanity. I want to take that away. It's reaffirm my connection to these really basic beliefs that I hold, that drive my whole life.
Now, I've heard you talk about those before. I know they're strong. So I'm interested, what is it about this discussion that's got you so much in touch with them again?
Well, your questions have supported me to tunnel down into them again. I've been able to see them again.
See them again.
I've been a bit disconnected from them recently.
So how will that help you in the other stresses you're having in your life and work at the moment?
Oh, I just feel more connected.
More connected.
When I'm dealing with them.
More connected.
Less under their influence.
Less under their influence? Now, being a servant in humanity.
Less under the influence of the things that have disconnected me
under
from
influence, yeah.
The pressures.
Of the disconnections. Yeah. Okay. So, we're going to stop there. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very much.